Vanakkam, Namaste, and blessings to everyone. This is Dr. Bhairavi Balasubramanian, PhD, the Sky Priestess. And welcome to Hello Neighbor. So, as most of you should know, Hello Neighbor is a series which I started a while back, initially on Facebook, but now, since I've moved to YouTube. It's essentially a kind of like a talk format where we just talk about general things. Sometimes it's astrology, sometimes it's general spiritual stuff, sometimes it's just stuff that's happening in my life and things that may also resonate with all of you. So it's not per se a, serious video, though it tends to be that way, maybe because people like asking me serious questions. But it's also just a chance to catch up, say hello to the community, and hear back from all of you. You see, it's funny. This morning I woke up feeling that, yeah, things had finally lifted somehow because it's been very, very heavy for me the past few weeks, and I'll tell you why. But I wake up and I read this message from this friend of mine, and she goes, and she's in Philadelphia. She goes, cars are on fire, and I'm like, and I look at it, and I'm like, oh dear God, which makes sense to me, to be honest, because if we think about it, things will not get better unless the poison is drawn out, unless things actually come to a point where people's true natures and people's true sides are seen, and we cannot hide behind political correctness anymore. That's been happening a while, but things are erupting in a way which for some people may seem like a really bad thing, and for other people it's like the truth is coming out. And I'm usually on that side of the fence. So when I woke up this morning and I felt that there had been a great shift in the collective, I didn't know. I just woke up having this feeling. It's the kind of shift that's, it's not like everything is suddenly okay. It means that things are erupting into the surface of consciousness so that everyone can actually see it. And if there's anything I know about spirituality, it is that denial is a powerful mechanism. Sometimes we will literally pretend not to see the writing on the wall for as long as we can avoid it until it becomes too painful for us or for someone we love. And that's usually when people allow the light of awareness to enter their own consciousness. So, yes, things are shifting, things are moving, things always are, but they're even more intense right now because we're headed towards an eclipse. So, as part of the Hello Neighbor series, today I wanted to also tell you a little bit about what's been happening with me and how that ties into everything else. So, a couple of weeks ago, and this is why I took a little bit of a break, we actually had a fire. And I'm never, ever, ever going to forget this fire. Not because I haven't been in fires before, but this was a very bizarre fire. I wrote about it in my Tier 23 because I felt comfortable only talking about it to a small group of people. But I also wanted to take some time to process, make sure that I'm okay, the cats are okay, my brother is okay. And yeah, it was actually a pretty life threatening fire. So all of a sudden, I was by myself. I was in this place with it's a particular Airbnb, and I just had this feeling that there was going to be a fire. And I've been having this premonition, and I told my brother, we got to get out of here. So he's off transporting our stuff to a different space. I've been looking at this gas stove and next to it an electric stove that, let's just say, the knob was being played around with and neither of us or the cats were doing it. And I just was like, okay, no, this is a bad idea. So we were packing up and we were trying to leave. And on the same night as we were doing this, all of a sudden I hear my cat screaming. And those of you who know my cat know that she's not just a cat. Or not that there's such a thing as just a cat. Cats are amazing anyway. But she started to scream. And I went and ran over to her and I just went, what's wrong? What's happening? And I just had this feeling, we'll just call this feeling, this impression of something that wanted me to do something, but it was wrong. You can hear her right now. And it was just something very wrong. And I just found myself saying out loud, no, this is not my path. I'm not doing this. And it just felt so wrong for some reason. I just said outside, no, not doing it. And you know what I'm like, straight arrow, as best I can. Sometimes you gotta go with the flow, but sometimes it's just boom. So that's what I said. And within 5 minutes, a flame erupted into life near me. And this is the funny thing. I have a very sharp nose, very sharp hearing, very sharp five senses, and I couldn't hear, see, smell anything. So I was kind of in a bit of a daze. And remember, I'd already been having a premonition that a fire was going to break out. And then all of a sudden, I see my little cat, and my cat is looking at me with this expression like, "Hello, what are you doing?" And all of a sudden, I see smoke around her, and I realize there's this blaze, and right next to me, 2 meters away, and I couldn't move. And then I got to my senses. I went and looked at it, and first of all, I did spend about less than 10 seconds freaking out. And I saw the cats were loose. I couldn't call for help. And then I put it out. Don't ask me how I did it. I just did. And after we looked at how it had started, and there was no logical way for it to have started. It actually took place on my prayer altar. And, but that's just the thing. My actual lamp for my altar was untouched. Fire was nowhere near it. There was just no explanation of how it had actually happened. And here's the scary thing. It had actually spread to some detergent, which had it exploded, I wouldn't be talking to you today. So, number one, it shouldn't have happened. Number two, it happened in a very weird controlled space. And number three, we still lived through it. Because by all rights, for some, it was literal. It leapt like a wall 1 foot high, and I had never seen anything like it. And I was just like, I don't even know how this is happening. But after everything was done, and I'm sitting in this room because there's smoke everywhere, and both the cats have health conditions and so on, and we're sitting in the room after I managed to put it out. I am still coolly texting my clients and responding to questions because that's what I'm like. In a crisis situation, work first, process later. And I'm still waiting, and finally my brother gets back. And, had it not been for my cat looking at me intensely, I would have just sat there, not even realized it was happening. 2 meters away. So, this kind of work has costs. It has consequences. There's a reason why a lot of traditional cultures didn't want people doing it, especially women. Because the more you actually help people out of very nasty, very tricksy contracts, there is pushback. Anyone who tells you otherwise is kidding themselves. And I can tell you that since then, the level of work that has come out in my own personal work and in the clients whom I'm helping, it's gotten even deeper, even farther. And I can see why there's a lot of stuff out there that doesn't quite like me. But it was a very clear defining moment in my life. I knew that if I had taken a different route, I would have been pushed into something completely different. But I was just like, no. So this is the interesting thing. Fire rages, hits the detergent doesn't explode, and somehow me, and I have no idea what the heck I'm doing, there she goes again. They have no idea, like, what the heck I'm doing. I'm just like, okay, I don't have sand. I try getting to the bathroom to reach for the hose doesn't reach. And eventually I just, I don't have anything else. There's no thick blanket because this is Malaysia. People don't have thick blankets in that way. You put a cotton blanket of it, it'll just go off. So I finally just, resort to getting pans of water and whacking it as hard as I can. And it goes out. And so I'm sitting in the room, and the girls are just really scared. And we're just sitting there, and I'm just waiting for my brother to come back. And, obviously he's in shock and so on because he wasn't there. He just heard about it, and so he rushed back. And I swear to God, this little girl of mine, she climbs up. There's another picture of a goddess there. And she kind of puts her hand on top of that picture to go, "It's okay, Mommy. You were protected the whole time." And this is true. Given how intensely it spread, I don't know how I'm alive. All I know is something didn't like me, but a lot more things actually did. So this is the nature of my life. I've seen too many of these experiences to necessarily be surprised for myself, but it involved the baby, whom you can hear. She's making a presence felt. This is not her cry for help screaming. This is her, "I'm echoing what Mommy is saying" screaming. So, because it was terrifying to me in that split second. I just saw her next to the flames, and I saw how scared she was. And in that moment, I knew I had to act. And, but, we are all okay physically. Emotionally, I think the girls are taking a little bit longer to come around, especially the younger one, because she would have been terrified. it's, all they did was, apart from my girl giving me very, very intense eyebrow motion, they just crawled under a chair and they were sitting there. And if I had done nothing, that's it. So, big mortality wake up at the very least, for me and the kids and my brother. But we are okay. That's why I was away for a while, because I just wanted to make sure that I was ready to work again, and everything is good. But things happen to me, and I know it happens for some of you as well. Things happen to me a little sooner than what you would expect, simply because the universe likes to make sure I know what's coming. And then I can go help other people. Nature of my contract. Great, isn't it? But yeah, I wanted to share that had happened. But as I said, we are okay. There was some damage which I had to pay for, and so on and so forth. But it could have been a lot worse. So I was thinking about the nature of that, and you know what I'm like. If something happens, I'll sit, I'll think about it, look at it, look at it, look at it, and I think it's really very, very much tied into the eclipse that's coming up. And this eclipse is going to be a big one, because it's going to be conjunct the great attractor, which is actually a point which I would say is more powerful than the galactic center, because it's actually bigger. It doesn't have an event horizon, but it is a very powerful gravitational field in space. And my Saturn is on this. So I know that something major was, something very, very major is happening right now. And and for some reason, I know why, but whatever is happening in my life, somehow it will mirror, or somehow I will get dreams about places that I am completely in this lifetime unconnected to in the United States. Or just somehow I will just have a sense of the knowing of what's going on there. Probably a past lifetime, probably several past lifetimes. So this is a time where the fire is coming out. People are making choices. You can't stand on the sidelines anymore. That doesn't mean I'm saying everyone needs to go into violence. No. What I'm saying is people are taking stands. You have to decide very, very clearly which path are you going to follow. And that was the situation I was put in. If I had just gone, this is not my responsibility, I can't handle this, I can't do this, I could have died, the girls could have died. And this is what I'm actually seeing getting reflected now more so, especially in the United States. The fires are rising, literally rising. People are being forced to decide where they stand. Are they going to be in the sidelines? Are they going to ignore what's happening and hope it doesn't affect them? Or are they going to give into, violence? Are they going to actually stand in integrity and stand up for what is right and do the needful? And this is what's happening at a collective level right now. I started off with me, but I'm just looking at that instance as reflective of what is happening at a much larger scale. So, when you're faced with that reality, things simplify. You know exactly where you need to be. And I was explaining this to someone today, and she was saying, well, what about the middle ground? And, she didn't quite phrase it that way, but the question was, there's what about taking the middle stance and so on and so forth. But to be honest, when it comes to a fundamental question of life and morality, it's very hard to take a gray area. But herein lies the point of discernment and wisdom that needs to come in at this time. And no matter what caused the fire, no matter who caused the fire, in my case, or what's happening in the United States, whether it's actual protesters or provocateurs, you can't know for sure. What you can know is whatever you do, meet it with clarity, but meet it with compassion. Even if you have to say no to something or someone, even if you have to stand up and take care of something or someone, because that's the moment, it's happening right there, right now. You need to come at it with a space where you know what you're about, but you do not have to hate. If I had wasted a single iota of my energy going into any other direction than the direction I took, I would not be speaking to you today. And this is the energy of what I'm seeing, is that kind of balance between compassion and clarity of action and intent. That is the kind of balance that I'm seeing is really being called for right now. And it's a tough balance, but people, we did not incarnate into easy times. We did not incarnate into a time where life was going to be a walk in the park, and all of us knew this coming. We wanted to imagine that the shift was going to be gradual and gentle and easy. Collectively speaking, I never thought it was going to be, but collectively speaking, we wanted to imagine that. And imagination is not reality. You can put all the intentions you want in the world out there, but unless you are willing to walk your talk, it counts as fantasy. And this is a time where we're being asked to walk our talk. This is the build up to this eclipse coming up in the first week of June. We're going to be seeing a few other key alignments that are kind of building up to this one by one by one. For example, right now, I believe we are seeing Venus at 15 degrees Gemini. That's going to be where the sun will be for the eclipse. We're already seeing the kinds of contracts, the kinds of relationships, the kinds of material discussions and ideas, and the rhetoric that's going to be flaring up in a week's time. So whatever is happening now is just the tip of the iceberg. And rather than going, oh no, things are going to be terrible, things are going to be horrible, you have to act. Whether your point is pacifism, whether it's something a lot more engaged, whatever it is, you have to decide where you are going to stand. And the sidelines is just not going to cut it. Now, when I say don't stand on the sidelines, I mean don't just go and look and see what somebody else is doing. That doesn't help anybody. If you're, deliberately taking an apolitical stance, that is also a stance, whether or not you want to argue otherwise. If you're taking a stance which is right there in the heart of things, as I was talking to someone else, like I said, I learn a lot from the people I meet. It's also about being safe and not carrying the energy of what is happening in the collective. And unfortunately, if you're just on the rabble-rousing side, God help you. Because even if you don't feel it now, you will at some point. But this is, again, a time where great truths are coming out. And we can no longer afford to hide in the middle space. It's now or never. But, whatever is coming out of everyone is not something that we haven't been anticipating. It's not something that should catch us unaware because we've been talking about this for a while. No, this is not actually new. Right now, what's happening is people who are wanting to live in denial are finding that a lot harder to do. So the best thing is to actually look in the mirror and go, okay, what do I need to look at the eye today and accept, deny, do something about it. Whatever you do, just be conscious with it. It is not easy to do when everyone else around you is also very, very intense and very, very charged. But this is why fighting for justice and fighting for your rights and fighting for a good cause is just one part of the journey. The other part of it is to remember that spiritual core of compassion in all that you do. Even if on the outside it seems like you're passionately arguing with someone for something, inside you've got to start with that space of self-love and love for the people who matter in your life, love for this planet. Any action, no matter how noble or righteous it seems on the surface, that is devoid of this core of love is not worth your time. It's not worth anybody's time. It has to come from here, And really, that's what saved me. I took one look at the little girl's face, and I was like, no, if I wait, something will happen. I have to act now. That's how it worked for me, and that's why I'm sharing what I'm sharing with you. Same principle. But that's what I wanted to tell you guys as preparation. Guys, girls, ladies, people of a different gender, or non-gendered. That's what I wanted to tell you in preparation for the eclipse. It's interesting. Some people have been leaving my Tier 23 platform. One lady even felt the need to block me. I have no idea why. Some people have been trying to donate to my PayPal account, but PayPal has been blocking them. There's been a lot of resistance to people actually accessing my teaching and work. And I know what insecure people are going to project on that as. That's not my concern. But I do know that the teachers who speak truth are under heavy fire right now. She agrees. The teachers who speak truth are under very, very heavy, a lot of heavy fire right now. And if you don't understand, do not judge. That's the simplest way to do it. Oh, she's making an appearance. She has comments. Any comments, any questions for Kitty? See, she knew exactly how to position herself. The girl, she just knows, okay? She just knows where to stand, how to get on screen. Oh, anyway, that's your view of her. So, yeah, now I'm going to field questions, comments, anything, and let's have a quick look at see who's online. I know it's a bit heavy for a hello neighbor, but you know what? I know other people do it, but I can't go, hello, everything is sweet and fine when cars are burning and people are protesting and injustice is coming to the surface of attention. No, I can't do that. So let's look at comments and let's see who is here. Hello VB, hello Whole Soul Drumming, hello Laverne, hello Suzanne, hello Debbie, hello Vanessa, hello Kavita, hello Watchman, hello Sean, hello Overflow, hello Amina, hello David, hello Black Action Pact, who got tear gassed multiple times last night. I hope you are okay. Thank you for doing the work. Hello Matthew, hello MS Love and Light. Hello, Victoria. Hello, Uma Devi. Hello, Alluring Goddess. Hello, Marilyn Park Armitage. Hello, Dimitri. I think I've got everyone. Okay, so let's look at questions. What do we have here? Okay. All right. Yes, Spirit spoke. Watchman wants to know, is Kitty the boss? Yes, Kitty is always the boss. Laverne wants to know, when do eclipses start? The first eclipse, depending on your time zone, first eclipse will be the 5th of June. Again, I use universal time in an effort to try and be fair to everybody, but so it will be the 5th of June. You'll already start seeing the first hit there. The second one will be around the solstice. The third one will be in early July. So we got 3 eclipses coming up. And on the middle of that, and 19th of June or so, we are going to be seeing an occultation of Venus and the moon, which is another type of eclipse. So that's 4. Let's see. Hello, CNC Music. Let's see, what other questions? Vivi wants to know, do you think we can see some positive from the efforts one has put in for the past 1 or 1.5 months? Honestly, I think it's not so much a positive immediate result, but you're probably going to have a better time navigating. Like, you're not suddenly going to see your life turned upside down and everything is suddenly okay, but you're probably going to see the benefit as learning how to navigate the challenges better. She agrees. Okay, so Amina wants to know, what does the lunar eclipse in Scorpio symbolize? Amina, I'm not sure if you know this, but I use the Western tropical system, so I can only speak to you about the lunar eclipse in Sagittarius. I will be doing a video on that closer to the date, so if you want, stay tuned. Alluring Goddess wants to know, are we shifting to 5D? Is this why of this is happening? According to my cat, I think that a lot of us are already in 5D. What's happening right now is whether or not we are willing to listen to the consciousness of the earth as we are shifting into that 5D state. See, there is a difference between shifting just up here, shifting from a whole consciousness perspective, and also shifting in alignment with the earth. The problem with people in the way that this is the Ascension community talks about this is they are talking about the word community, but ultimately they make it into an individual process. It's not being looked at as a collective or a holistic process that involves the actual consciousness of Gaia, because Gaia got her own timeline. You know, we can't rush this because we're human beings living at the cusp of a new age. We have to understand that the Earth's cycles are a lot longer, and for her, this is just nothing. This is probably like acne, you know? So it's also about listening to the planet's changes. Now, see, a Saturn in Capricorn shift happens once every 30 years. Even this entire outbreak with COVID and whatnot, it happens once every 50 years because of Chiron opposing the supergalactic center. So, you know, what we are looking at right now, it's really intense. It's a shift. Actually, everybody in every decade will have to look at this. everybody in every decade born in different times of reality, different parts of time space will be looking at some major event saying, is this the big shift? Honestly, I would say, given how much is in Capricorn, this is probably where we're going to get a lot more cleared if we work very hard towards it. But there's also a kind of a, yes, no, on off switch. Effectively, this is the kind of energy that a person who wants to entrench the old can entrench the old, and the person who wants to move to the new can move to the new. And if you're not willing to embrace that either or, that's when you're going to get this kind of dichotomy. Because some people will not be wanting to move. Heck, there are parts of the earth that are in flux right now. What I would say, what we are seeing as part of the intensity of the human expression is just one fractal of what is happening in the earth's expression. It's much, 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 much deeper than that. Abby says, great to see you live. Some things feel good and some don't. That's exactly it. Gertie has a very interesting question. Hello, Gertie. Could you elaborate on what you mean by contracts and severing contracts? Also, why law language is significant. Okay, so I don't know why this is so, but when dealing with a legal language or legal framework, let me put it this way. The law, idealistically speaking, is a language that helps us make contracts. But while we make contracts, we also have a certain set of rules that help us establish identities. And rather than saying that why is the legal language itself, as we understand it as humans, why is it significant in spiritual work, it's the best metaphor that we can come close to in trying to understand the processes of alchemy, because that's what it is. You have certain rules of principles that you follow, and you try to make those principles interact in certain ways. But there is a structure to it, there is an order to it. As far as I understand, the closest language that comes to that, without going into something very esoteric or occult, is the framework of the law. And so I would say, rather than the language itself, the best way I can describe it is that the language itself is a metaphor. It is a metaphor for what is happening. It is a metaphor for a way that you can look at yourself in relationship to larger reality. And personally, I think it's the best metaphor that still exists, simply because we have a belief in it. If we did not believe in the law, if we did not collectively have an agreement to the concept of a contract, it would not have any power. Literally, it works because we believe in it to work. The same principle applies to the way we think about legitimacy in the state, which is, now I know why I've been obsessed with this topic my entire time learning to be an academic in political science. But I hope that answers your question. When you talk about contracts and severing contracts, essentially that is a metaphor or analogy to the soul basically saying, I'm kind of done with this experience. So if we were able to do this from an emotional and intuitive perspective, we wouldn't be needing to talk about this. We wouldn't need astrology. In fact, we don't. We literally just need to listen to ourselves. As I've said many a times, I'd be very, very happy the day when no one needed me to say this. Simply because I would then probably find a completely different job, which is totally fine. But that day has not yet come. At the very least, I don't think I've contributed enough yet. But at some point, when I think I've done enough, I'll probably just pack my bags and go and sit on a beach and make sandcastles. So, next question. Did they manipulate this to take our rights away and make us slaves? You gotta be a lot more specific, honey, because I can, if you're asking me about the Middle Passage and the experience of African Americans, yes. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened. Or, the experience of the indigenous people and the genocide with colonial conquest, yes, that's exactly what happened. VB says, is this a stage that people feel only self-help is the only way up and forward? That's what I'm feeling now. It's only me who can fully help myself. Okay, there's a difference between independence, really going at it and trying your hardest, and that same energy of independence, when you take it too far, can just mean being very bullish, very stubborn, And there's a certain ego associated with that. So even with independence, know that there's certain points where you really want to get some help from someone who can help. Whether it's God, ultimately, spirit is the most direct thing, and that's great if you can go directly. Sometimes people go through facilitators to help. But honestly, I would say 90% of the effort needs to be yours. There are certain times where something is out of your awareness to see, because not everyone has to do this as a job. Lucky you. Not everyone has to do this as a job. And sometimes you do need help from people who can speak that language for you. But again, 90% of the time, it comes down to you and your will. Let's see. Dimitri asked, do you work with the energy of stones? If so, what could you suggest? This is a good question. Now, at times like this, it depends. Stones are like medicines. Each body is different. Each body responds differently to a medicine. Each person has a different reason for experiencing a certain thing. So I can only give some very basic generals. Right now, I will not tell you to calm down. No, this is the time to stir things up, but in a good way, in a positive way, in a way that actually allows you to make the most of this. For those of you who are willing to ride the storm, get the Tempest Stone, Pietisite. I believe you spell it as Piet, in a way, Pietiersite. If you look up Pietisite or the Tempest Stone, you'll find it. Matthew Watson says, we are kind of already slaves. Yeah. I mean, heck, anytime you sign a license agreement or anything online, you're already giving them rights over your information. Certainly. Savita says, hi, hello. Unique Ride says, children under the principalities, minor, aka wards of the state. Yep, absolutely. Watchman, what oils would you recommend to use over this eclipse season? I'm going to say, let's see. Again, I think you need to agitate, but in a good way. Maybe a combination of black pepper and something like rose. That should be quite powerful. But please, please, please remember, essential oils are very strong. If you've got pets, if you've got kids, if you've got people with certain health conditions, don't just put it in a diffuser and assume it's going to be fine. Smell it from a bottle if you're unsure about the health of the people and the beings around you, because I've done a lot of research into this. You need to be more mindful about it, especially in the way that it's rather uncritically discussed and shared. Let's see. Alluring Goddess, I meant with the coronavirus and now people protesting, was this manipulated to take our rights away? If it was a manipulation, I think it's happening at an order that's beyond people. Okay, Matthew Watson, will the people running the masses be judged in this lifetime? That is probably a question for an archangel, not me. All right, Uma Devi, Dr. Bhairavi, how to connect to the spirits? How do we know we have connected to the right spirit? That is, that's a tough one, honey. Sometimes the right spirit is scary as hell, and sometimes something that feels comfortable is something you really don't want to talk to. The best, for spiritual expansion in the best way possible, you really, really need someone whose sight you can trust. And having been under, having seen people who really are very, very untrustworthy, and looking back, one of the reasons I learned so much was going to terrible people in the first place. I would just say be very careful with who you choose as a guide. Just because the moment you put someone else's sight above your own, on the one hand you are giving them a power, but on the other hand you're also being humble. And it's kind of like finding that dance between the two. Personally, I would say, Uma, you have to find out, why do you want to connect with spirits? What's the purpose of connecting with spirits? Sometimes a person has to. It may be their job, it may be their spiritual calling, and sometimes they are really just messing with things that are not going to take their life in the right direction. So look at your reasons before you ask that question. Amina wants to know, solar eclipse in Gemini, honey bunch. Don't know why you keep asking me this. Please wait for the video when it comes up. I work on my timing, not anyone else's. And my timing is not even my timing. It comes from somewhere else. So just stay tuned. Okay, whole soul drumming. Regarding routines, what would you recommend to people in the cities under siege do before bed to help with dream states? This is a good question. There's a lot actually coming up in the realm of dreams right now, and we are not getting rested. We are not getting rested. We are getting, I would say, inundated. Um, Lepidolite can help, but really, I think it's better if you just talk to yourself. Like just say, you know what, self, subconscious self, superconscious self, please, don't really want to go anywhere right now. I just need sleep. That actually works. I mean, honestly, just really sitting with the vibration with yourself, just sitting with your own vibration and just talking to yourself does more than an oil or a gemstone can do. Exactly. As Unique Right says, it's me, myself, and I. Spirit works in weird ways. Sometimes we have help from externally, sometimes it's just ourselves. And sometimes that's enough. Like I said, if you want a general rule of thumb, 90% of the time, it's got to be you who helps yourself, not anybody else. We've outsourced this way too much. There's certain things where I would say, like surgery, you should never ever try to do it yourself because that's just stupid. You don't prove anything. You're probably going to get it wrong, and you're probably going to spend a long time healing afterwards. And maybe you don't even know how to stitch it up right when it's on yourself. Doesn't matter how brilliant you are with another person. There's a balance between doing it yourself and knowing when to ask for help. And unfortunately, people have been conditioned into looking for that other person. It doesn't matter whether it's someone talking about spirit or talking about astrology. Honey, if I can talk to you about alignments 10 years from now, 100 years from now, and that is not going to do anything for your life. Sure, it might make me look great, but that doesn't help. Categories. Be in the moment. Be in the moment. Take it a day at a time. Slow down your life, breath to breath. Moment to moment, breath to breath. That's exactly what anyone needs to do right now. This is that kind of year. Everything is erupting around us, but what we're being asked to do is to come back to the most simple of basics, simplest ideas. It's all about consolidation. See, it's going to be a little bit harder, especially with the South Node now in moving into Sagittarius. It'll complete moving into Sagittarius on June the 4th. And, people are going to want to have all the answers. People are going to want to have that plan. It doesn't work that way. Anyone who gives you an ironclad, full, crude, concrete plan is selling you something. Do not buy into it. Moment to moment, breath to breath. That is all you can do. And anyone who tells you the spiritual path is supposed to insulate you from pain or what the collective is feeling or what is happening around you is selling you something else. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it feels good until the bubble is burst, but it's up to you whether you want to hide in any bubbles. I certainly have never been given that luxury, and even when I try, I look at it and go, this is terrible. I think I might have mentioned this story to you before. I was in the hospital once, and this was in England, and they were giving me this ridiculous amount of morphine because I was in so much pain. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it. The moment I could feel my consciousness like leaving my body, I just went down because it doesn't work for me. So, that's just me. But anyway, let me see who else has said anything. Okay, people like the questions. That's good. That's good. Cesra says, Kiara Ora from New Zealand. Hello, I watched Lord of the Rings the other day. The cats love Lord of the Rings. It's amazing. And New Zealand is probably the most beautiful place on earth. Nice. Thank you for saying hi. Okay, VB says some opportunities coming up, how to approach them moment by moment. Brandon Lewis says, Sky Priestess, heart, heart, heart. Hello. Unique Ride says something about wolf tickets. What is that? What is a wolf ticket? Do wolves sell tickets now? What is that? I don't know what that is. Amina Sabot says, thank you for being you, love you. Thanks, honey. I appreciate it. But, I can only share what Spirit tells me to share. Anything too early, anything too slow, I'm going to cop it, not you. So I got to be right on time. Okay, Mimi asks, I've been noticing increasing alien presence in my city at night. Are they observant about the shifts that humanity is going through? Aliens are an interesting question. Just because of ancient aliens. I used to watch it. I used to watch it. I really did. And because I was trying to learn something, right? But at some point I realized every damn thing comes down to according to ancient alien theory. And it's just like, oh my God. A, it's a hypothesis. B, older civilizations were actually able to learn and do some of the stuff that Western cultures considered impossible. Thank you very much. But see, it's created again this weird narrative of dependence. I mean, I think if they could get away with it, they would probably say toilet paper was created by aliens. Who knows? It might have been. But effectively, when I think about the energy of aliens, even though I am a huge X-Files fan, I think it's very important that we don't think about it in the way that cinema and Hollywood and so on has sent it to us. Gods, aliens, demons, angels, they all exist at different vibrational frequencies. And if you're asking me, are those civilizations aware of what's going on? Absolutely yes. Yes, they are. Does that mean the great ship is going to come to land? I want to see David Duchovny's face when that happens. I really want to see that. I want to see the guy playing Mulder looking at that going, wow. But no, I don't think that necessarily is going to happen. But are there other civilizations watching us? Yes, I do believe that. I just don't think it's the way Hollywood shows it. Now, the person asking the question probably knows this, but there's a lot of you listening who may or may not have different views on it. But it's just like, yes, we are not alone in this universe. I find it very strange to even believe that every planet has its own energy. I guess as someone who works with astrology, it's easier for me to just look at that and go, duh. But everything has its own vibration. The earth plane cannot be the only space where we understand knowledge, science, arts, music, whatever it is. Otherwise, this is, it's a whole waste of space. Yeah, I would say things are watching, things know that things are happening. Sometimes what we call as aliens are basically just different dimensional beings and different dimensional forms of consciousness. So let us continue. Okay, apparently wolf tickets mean someone selling you false hopes or promises to deliver something they can't. So that is an interesting thing I have learned today. I feel bad for the wolves though. Tony asks, hi Sky Priestess, thanks for sharing. Where in our chart do we see our spiritual gifts? Okay, Tony. It's easier to tell you by house because the sign and placements that everyone has in their charts different. But a good general rule of thumb: look at the 8th house and the 12th house. Between the two, you're probably going to figure at least something out, as a general thing. Okay. Uma asks, Doctor, I want to connect to spirits for guidance. What kind of guidance? Guidance to live in this world. Honey, the spirits are not living in this world. They don't know what it is to be human. You are living your life. Only you know what is best for your life. And there are certain thresholds where maybe you might need someone else. Rather than going to a spirit who is not walking the journey right now with you, go to yourself first. If you can, seek out a human being who can help you. And if that human being cannot help you, then turn to a divine being. Personally, I'd say go to the divine being first because I know who I'm referring to right now. Start step by step, bit by bit. If you suddenly go to a spirit, at the end of the day, this is what people don't want to talk about when it comes to spirituality. It's like at the end of the day, if the spirit goes, yes, you're suffering now, but you'll come back later and learn something different. And this is where I differ from a lot of spiritualists in the field. I'm like, look, man, I don't care about my next life 10,000 years down the line. I'm here now. I need answers for the now. I need something that is actually going to understand my human heart and perception as being as equally valid to be a quote-unquote divine one that is above me or whatever. And this is why I see things the way I see things. If your human heart and your human, and I'm not talking about mind stuff and mind loops, I'm talking about pure human heart resonance is not being acknowledged, there is no point looking for spirituality. To actually go to that level of spirituality in a grounded way, you have to start with yourself. You must first start with the knowledge that is in your heart. First, find that part of you that you trust. Only then will you have the discernment to know what is out there. But then again, I know who I'm talking to right now. So, let's see. Uh, da, 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 da. Okay, Amina wants to know, do you believe that aliens have been reincarnated into our earth as humans now to help raise collective consciousness? I will answer this question in a different way. I don't think everybody alive now is from the earth plane. Mariko, oh, hello, love. Been burnt out from medical work, trying to stay upright during all this collective grief. Any recommendations for riding this wave of intensity while trying to help people so tired? There's a stone for this. Wait, give me a second. What is it? What is it? What is it? If I remember it, it'll come to me. You know what? If I get it, I'll make a video or just make a note on my YouTube. But I would actually say for healers, warriors, people walking the path right now and who need help, carnelian. The motto for carnelian is God helps those who help themselves. Get yourself some carnelian that will help. That will help to replenish the energy. Lavan wants to know, what do you know of sidereal versus tropical? I know I grew up with the sidereal system and it never worked for me. Let's see. VB, should we not have consultations during this month of June where there are multiple eclipses? Not necessarily. The thing is, you need to find a facilitator who can handle the vibration of the eclipse. And I don't exempt myself from it. I've learned from experience, never do a session on an eclipse day unless that person is extremely important to you and you are yourself are able to handle the energy. So unless you know that person, it's probably not a good idea. Not because there's anything bad about the eclipse in itself. It just means that that person has to be at the level that you need them to be, and you need to have a connection with them, a significant connection, because the thing about eclipses is they're woven across time in 18-year intervals. Some eclipse cycles are hundreds of years long. So unless you actually want to be connected to that person in that way and they want to be connected to you, best avoid major things during an eclipse unless you're absolutely sure. That's one of the reasons why the temples, for example, I would say they're basically playing it very smart. It's like, there's a risk of things going sideways here, let's just not. That's why I would say that's one of the reasons why Hindu temples close during eclipse times. Let's see. Uma Devi asked, Doctor, is there a difference between connecting to the universe and the spirits? Yes, yes, yes. See, how do I describe this? Okay, when someone dies, let's say a human being dies, that person's spirit has to go on a journey. It's funny, sometimes during my sessions, spirits who have not left will suddenly come and stand there and I'll be like, who is this dude behind you wearing this and wearing that? Who is this person? And be like, oh, that's my dad, they just died. And I'll just be like, oh, hello. And the thing is, so, and this wasn't something that I wanted to ever be able to see, but it happens. But when a soul is not, shall we say, has not gone on their journey, they're still lingering around. And they're human, or rather they have a human memory of their experience here. So they're not exactly sources of divine knowledge. It's like asking a human being for their opinion. That doesn't make it better or worse than your own. It just means that's their way of seeing reality. When you're talking about listening to the universal source or universal guidance, that's less about a human experience, and that is more about something that is timeless and is eternal. It, in all likelihood, will not have a form, it will not have a name, it will not have a shape, it will not even have a religion. And finding that is what every mystic has done. Everyone who walks this path, and it can be, in a human sense, it can be a very lonely path. Sometimes they go sit on a mountain for dozens of years. Sometimes they walk amongst people and never really know the people next to them because they're constantly in search for something different. But if someone is meant to be on this path, the path will find them. I did not choose this. I did not choose this. I thought I was going to have a completely different life. I'm talking at a conscious level. But when the path is yours to take, it will find you. If you are searching for it, chances are you're not meant for it. Chances are. Find what is looking for you in a way that speaks to your soul. And that's what I would suggest. It doesn't have to be spirituality. It doesn't have to be anything at all. It can just be as simple as you sitting with yourself. It is more than enough. A couple of people have come with suggestions for healers who are going through great intensity right now. Fuchsite, I don't know how to pronounce it. That is the good one. Amazonite, that's the one. Amazonite, thank you, Emma Hansen. Amazonite is an extraordinary stone for people who are under a lot of stress and tension right now. But I would still recommend carnelian because it gives you an energy boost. Dimitri asks, will you still be taking sessions before the eclipses start? If anyone wants a session with me, I will consider your case. You will need to send me a message through my website. If Spirit tells me, wait until afterwards, that's exactly what I'll tell you. Because this is not my timing. If it was, I would have done things differently. But then again, I wouldn't be the sky priestess. Okay, Amina asks, and you are very active today, Amina. What is the best way to break a karmic imprint when it's an external projection of your way of being? Go to someone who does that for a living and does it well. Again, do not try to do surgery on yourself. It does not work. Let's see. Anybody else? And again, thank you, Emma Hansen, for Amazonite. I just could not put my finger on it. But yes, that's what I would recommend as well. Amazonite to calm the stress, but carnelian to give you that boost. I remember when I was actually introduced to carnelian. There's a story there. It was during my PhD thesis. I went through so much of psychic shit and backlash. I don't even know how I survived that time. But I did. And it wasn't from the thesis, I can tell you that. It was weird. I was not raised in the Judeo-Christian tradition, but apparently the Judeo-Christian tradition likes me. And suddenly I got this sound, this, I just saw this in this dream. It was a Bible passage. And I was like, who is talking to me now? What is happening? So I did my digging, and I looked and looked and looked and looked and looked. And I investigated, and I found that it was actually a passage that referred to, I believe, the mythical breastplate with the 12 gemstones and representing the 12 tribes. And it was funny. At that point, I was reading Heaven and Earth, Book of Stones, and so on. And everything just came together. There was a phrase that was taught to me a week prior to that saying, God helps those who help themselves. And then I suddenly have this dream with this Bible passage, and I go and look it up. And when I looked at it, I realized they were talking about carnelian. That was what linked together in my dream. And then I go and read the Book of Stones, and that's the motto there. God helps those who help themselves. And it was just a triple confirmation. So when I held it, I just felt this incredible increase of energy, and I was depleted. I was completely depleted. That's why I have a lot of sympathy for people who are walking the path, who are beginning on the path, because, honey, I've done a lot of stupid mistakes, but that's how I learned. Sometimes it is literally just naivete. Sometimes it's people playing an ego game, and that I don't like so much. But I remember the stone gave me a helping hand because it gave me the motivation I needed to just bring it back to myself. Because at the end of the day, nobody can heal you if you are unwilling to heal. Nobody can help you if you are unwilling to be helped. And honestly, it's not anyone's responsibility to do that. People can help you. But at the end of the day, it is you who has to make those changes in your life. Now, we have a very important question, and I think I'll be closing the Hello Neighbor series for today after this last question. The Healer's Lounge wants to know, hi, Dr. B. What advice, oh, by the way, hello, Joy. What advice do you have for Black Americans that are spiritual healers but also carry wounds related to the current climate? Trying to find that balance has been challenging. And I can absolutely understand this. Where I live, there's a lot of racism and colorism and so on and so forth. Obviously, slavery is a completely different experience than being a minority in a country that has not had that experience. So I'm not comparing that, but I can understand some of those wounds. Oh, that is a really tough one. See, if compassion worked by itself, in and of itself, the world would be a very different place. Compassion is important. Compassion is what needs to power every action in the world. Whether it's acceptance of something, whether it's protesting against something, and that compassion needs to start with you. Every spiritual healer needs to learn the principle of self-love first. Now, the problem is when people take self-love too far, it becomes narcissism. So a lot of healers stay away from that because they don't want to fall into the category of the people they're trying to get away from. But this is where it all begins. You must first feel that overwhelming love for yourself, because when you are sitting in that pure place of love, you will realize, and this is something that I have learned, not through my head, but I have felt that the moment you actually sit in that real space of love, self-love, it automatically becomes about other people. It's self-love doesn't exist in a vacuum. It very naturally and organically, exists where you. Okay, I'm just gonna comment quickly on something I'm seeing here. Someone says be on higher frequencies. Honey, love is the highest frequency. When you start with love, pure self-love, it automatically becomes love for everything around you. I don't know how it happens, but it's just the way it is. Because self-love and love for your loved ones are not two separate things, at the very least, the way I understand it. The way we market self-love often ends up eating chocolate and, having bath salts and retreat spas and whatnot, and I don't agree with that understanding of self-love at all. That's just more crass commercialism. But self-love, when you go to the heart of it, will automatically and organically expand. You know, it's like wounded healers need to start with themselves first, because they just forget to do that. They try to skip that step and then they go for everybody around them, and then they get angry. And that anger inside of them reinforces with the anger outside of them, and it just puts them into a kind of a loop. So you have to go back to your own personal story. You have to go back to the story of you and the story of why, and in some sense find love through and compassion through that story, to the point where the story doesn't matter and you realize it's not an I, it's actually a you, it's actually a we. I know it doesn't sound logical, but it's kind of the way I have seen this happening. The more loving I am towards myself, the more naturally compassionate and generous and protective I am of the people whom I love. I don't know how that works, but it works. And, it's not, see this, again, I'm seeing another comment here and I feel the need to respond to this. It's not even self-preservation. It's not even about you. It's not about you as a being. It's not about you as an individual. See, that's where Western thinking and Western philosophy has messed up spirituality. It's not about the individual. It's about coming back to the part of you that's so pure. Words like individuality, words like preservation, they don't matter. It just comes to that unified field of consciousness that's inside everybody, And if you start to do anything from this space, chances are you will find your path and where you need to be and do what you need to do, because love can be terrifying. If you are a mom or a dad protecting their child from a predator, your love is not going to look cuddly. You are going to scratch their eyes out. This is the kind of space where people need to understand that love is not pretty. Love is not pretty all of the time. Sometimes it's sweet, sometimes it's flowers, sometimes it's chocolates, sometimes it's cuddles. But sometimes it is literally standing there and protecting your loved one from danger. It comes in many faces. And this is where, again, the language, I'm not saying people are wrong, I'm saying the language puts people in boxes and locks them in their mind and prevents them from actually feeling them, their true selves. And the person who asked this question, I believe, is Chiron in Aries. And that's a very fair question for a person Chiron in Aries to ask. But yeah, just, throw out the words. Go straight back to that pure essence and experience of, again, lack of a better term, self. And you realize everything you're looking for, the universe, community, your loved ones, you access it through here. It's not about this. It's not about the rest of your body either. It is primarily your heart in this day and age. Any spiritual path that decenters the true vibration of the heart, you got to look at again and again and again, because it's not about your logic. It's not about your intellect. It's got nothing to do with that. It's something that moves through and beyond. And that is the best way I can express love. But I hope that answers your question. And I know it's a sensitive question, and I hope in no way you think I'm making light of the situation, but it has to start from here. Whatever you do, it has to start from here. I would say that's about it. I've spoken for an hour. I am tired. I need to go for lunch. Take care. Very many blessings. Lots of love to all of you. Remember, in the face of the fire, you must meet it with clarity, compassion, and love. That's it. Cha-cha for now. Bye-bye.